off with introductions. I'm going to have you introduce yourself.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Martha Botier. I work for the City of Detroit on the Neighborhood Economic Development team.
Hi, I'm Paula Andreini, and I'm the owner of Candela Detroit Southwest, based on 25th and Broadway.
I'm Brandon Hodges, principal and founder of Drive Development. We're a local real estate consultant and developer headquartered in Jefferson Charles.
Eddie Carrington, lead developer of Flux City, and we're headquartered in the city of Detroit as well.
So we're going to start off with a really quick question, which is, with SNF, how did it impact your project and you getting into development opportunity in the city of Detroit? And we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I mean, it has been an amazing help to be able to get additional funding, because being a first-time developer, you know, I did have some capital gaps, and if it wasn't for the SNF fund, I was not be able to complete it. We actually then bought two buildings. One is where we have Candela Detroit, and then right next to it, we actually bought a whole vacant funeral home. But we got a full rehab, again, uplifting the whole neighborhood in the black. We pretty much finalized the apartment upstairs, and downstairs we're going to be doing a convenience store to be able to give opportunities to the ghost kitchen we're building at the venue, and give other entrepreneurs more opportunities to be able to sell their food constantly.
Brandon?
Yes, I think Eddie spoke a little bit to it in terms of just feasibility, right? Because, you know, order of magnitude, we're closing on a $4.5 million mixed-use renovation. The building's only worth $1.1 million. Right? So you're kind of starting from a deficit to start, right? So, you know, development is governed by a very simple economic equation with math, you need subsidy. So I think for us, it was an opportunity to kind of do our first deal as investors. You know, worked in development for a while, but to actually invest our own money into a deal, we had to have some level of capability that that deal was going to solve, right? There had to be an economic rationale to be in general. And so that's in terms of subsidy, partnership, community engagement capital was really vital that we were able to kind of see some predictability in a very small scale kind of neighborhood way, where most neighborhoods across the city just don't have that visibility.
I concur with what Brandon said. My building is appraised at $3.5 million, cost $8.2 million to, develop it. And so, at the end of the day, gap funding is needed in order for us to, as emerging developers and developers that focus our energy and effort into the communities, into the neighborhoods, not specifically downtown, midtown, but we're talking, the true communities of the city of Detroit. It takes that type of financial support that SNF provides us in order for us to make it pencil out. And when we say pencil out, it's not to a point where the developer is able to make a mint. I always like to point out that these different funding mechanisms allow for us to get to a point where we can get this project to the closing table, and hopefully get it to a point where it's cash flowing and covering its debt service. But due to the amount of gap funding that is needed in order for us to get us to that point, don't expect to see us driving around in, a Lamborghini anytime soon.
In the future,
Maybe in the future.
So I'm grateful to have Martha Botier here, who represents the city of Detroit. And I want you to just kind of talk about your team and your office, which has been critical to helping us navigate the red tape, so to speak, at the city of Detroit. The Neighborhood Economic Development Office, you've been an integral part of these developments and working with these developers. So could you just kind of speak to that a little bit and what you're doing today?
Sure, yeah. The City of Detroit has had a public-private partnership team on the housing side for many years. Shout out to Josh. Anyone else who's on that team that I may be overlooking. And the team's been really effective at bringing housing and mixed use and, in the past, commercial developments online by helping to shore up all potential sources of capital for the project, explore payments and incentives, often with our colleagues at the DEG was doing a tag team with our P3 colleagues on mixed-use projects. So we're really trying to provide wraparound support for these developers to do everything from purchasing the land, especially when it is city-owned, in some instances DLBA as well, to ribbon cutting. To make sure that they have what they need to get the project done, because we know time is money, and the longer the project languishes trying to shore up its capital stack, trying to get its permits, the more expensive it gets, and the likelihood of that project succeeding goes down, unfortunately. So we're there to rise to the moment with the developer and get them what they need.
There's been a number of really great innovations that came through lessons learned under the Strategic Neighborhood Fund 1, the Strategic Neighborhood Fund 2. This Neighborhood Economic Development Office at the city is one of those. It's a fairly new team. They've been together, less than a year?
Just a little over.
Just a little over a year. But it seems like you all have been in this position for like 2 to 3 years, for as hard as you all are working to make sure that those innovations of cutting down on permitting time is important. There's also another innovation that I didn't get a chance to shout out, but I want to, because I see him sitting here in the crowd here. I'm sorry, I took a bite of pizza, but I'm still going to say it. Ryan Hardiman and the ep.076 Fund and his team are one of those innovations that, working with the developers, seeing the need for additional capital to support on the operations side, to help folks grow and expand has been extremely important to the work that we're doing, and we know it's going to be a critical component as they're out fundraising now as well. It's going to be a really critical component of SNF3, and something that we're looking forward to being in partnership as we continue to grow our fund as well. With that in mind, I have a question for the developers here. What are some of the opportunities that you see moving forward in the neighborhoods that you're operating in over the next 5 years with the ability to work with the Strategic Neighborhood Fund and other partners?
Well, for myself, definitely, once you kind of become a developer, you want to continue, right? So that's a big thing of it. And two, is looking into continue to sort of map out and trying to, enhance the neighborhood based on what you're already creating. Because as you start working on a project, you realize there's additional needs. And, I do want to give a shout out to Martha and Chris from the city, because, they have been extremely important for me to be able to, as an emerging developer, to be able to get through and understanding the process, the permits, the timing that it takes, the proper documentation that you need to create when you go into a hearing and things like that, maybe for a seasoned developer, it's like, oh, that's easy stuff, but as you're starting out, it is really critical to be able to have somebody kind of on your side to help you out. So thank you. But as a developer, like I said, it's really realizing the more you're in the neighborhood, the more that people start engaging with what you're doing, what opportunities comes, and it will continue to enhance. And we hope to continue to improve the neighborhoods.
So I would say, personally, one thing is community education. I think engagement is at the core of what we do as Strategic Neighborhood Fund Games. And I think we have an incentive and reasons to take to do that. We do a fairly long engagement process with my partner David Nichols in the crowd with trying to secure a restaurant tenant for our project with Deco. And I'm noticing that we have a very unique opportunity to instill in communities more education around what development actually means, so that they can actually negotiate better with developers, right? Like, there's an accountability that we adhere to, because we are neighbors in a neighborhood, right? We should be accountable to doing certain things, and I think to do that the right way, people have to know what's at stake, right? And frankly, like, most neighborhoods don't. And I think this is indicative of maybe CDO processes, but we have to kind of let that gestation period take hold and really understand what community needs, what's feasible, and then triangulate between this and that. And my moonshot wish for SNF is some sort of liquidity mechanism, right? Because I think in the city of Detroit in general, you renovate a building, you build something new, you're not selling that in year 3 or 5, right? Any place where we're going to build equity, where we're going to move on to the next thing, I don't necessarily want to hold things for 15 years. I need to get out of the deal and reinvest the capital, and I think compared to other cities, we just don't have a secondary market that allows us to kind of extract the value that we're creating. So if there were a mission-focused REIT of sorts or something, we have to be able to move in and out of deals, create value, and build our firms, because it takes a lot of money to invest in these projects from day one. And if I got to spread capital across 5 different projects and never see a dime back from an exit, then the company's not going to scale as it should.
Absolutely.
100% agree. My request for SNF is to piggyback on one of Brandon's points, many great points, is the need for us developers to have more opportunity to provide commercial tenants with financial support. So tenant improvement, right? I read in the Cranes Detroit, I think it was today or yesterday, they came out with an article that basically said that tenant concessions are at an all-time high. And there's a reason for that. It's really, really hard, for a commercial tenant to open a brick and mortar. It's really challenging, it's scary, it's 2024, everything is online. Nobody is going out, sitting down for lunch or dinner anymore, unless, you're downtown and, after a Lions game or a Tigers game, go Tigers. At the end of the day, there needs to be some type of ability from a developer's stance to be able to provide pretty much everything a tenant is going to require from a commercial standpoint in order for us to give them the greatest chance at success, and in order for us to be able to attract the right tenant that the community is demanding for us to bring to this site. And so one of the biggest things that has been keeping me up at night is finding a food service tenant for the space that I have allocated at the Ribbon for a food service. I've had 2 lease agreements signed, I've had numerous, LOIs signed with a number of tenants that I thought were capable of being able to accomplish their vision, but they weren't, because mostly due to the build-out costs associated with fleshing out a kitchen and front of house and things of that nature. And I don't blame these tenants for kind of getting cold feet due to the fact that especially when we're talking food service in this example, these are very hard businesses to operate in 2024. So yeah, that's just one of the rambles I have for SNF and for the funding partners to be willing and able to provide more TI dollars in order for us to in turn flow that down to the tenant and give us an opportunity to give them a better chance at success.
Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing those comments. And one of the things that, under the Strategic Neighborhood Fund 3 that we've been talking about and looking for partners to execute is that technical assistance and that wraparound support past the ribbon cutting, right? We've done a really great job as a city of bringing great projects to the forefront and getting to those ribbon cuttings, and that secondary piece, which we are looking to really fill that gap under SNF3 is the TA, whether it's helping someone with their inventory, if they're a restaurateur, helping folks who are connecting them to resources, accounting resources, those types of things that can help make these corridors sustainable and resilient, because that is what we're absolutely going for, is for the resiliency of these neighborhoods, and not just as a term we just throw around, but as a real impact on the ground for when we come back and we're shopping summer after summer at the same spots, same restaurants, and hopefully Eddie and your spot, when you get that restaurant tour, it'll be like Cheers when I walk in. Hopefully, everybody knows your name.
I got a vision. Jermaine's Jermaine's Cafe. Let me know if you're interested. We can make it happen.
Something like that. You might have a partner with me, man. We'll make it happen. So now we're running up on time, so I just want to say I want to close by giving you all the opportunity to say anything about impact, and what excites you about your work moving forward and the opportunity for Detroit. And it could be, anywhere in the neighborhoods. What are you excited about seeing? Martha, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm thrilled that SNF is continuing because without it, we're just not going to see as many projects as we've been able to see. And I think that we've, SNF won those first 5 years, definitely a lot of lessons learned. I know that was alluded to earlier. And I think that we're in a place where we have the infrastructure in terms of manpower to really deploy SNF judiciously and effectively. And so I'm really pleased at the chance to continue to see more projects and get more things open in neighborhoods because that tends to be where people feel like they have the fewest options. So that's really important to me.
Yeah, for me, it's very exciting to be able to, with what I'm doing, starting to see that a lot of people are thankful that they don't have to travel to other parts of the city or other actual cities outside of Detroit to work. I constantly know I have especially when I do events, even on a day-to-day, I have multiple employees now. And they're so thankful because I'm like, oh, I had to go downtown, or I had to go to Lincoln Park, or I had to go to other cities to be able to find work. And to see that excitement and that support from our neighbors is very, very nice because we're making a difference. So to me, that's the biggest thing that gives me, excitement to see is that we're creating those opportunities, not only for myself, but in my family, but also to the whole neighborhood.
I would say, we're fortunate that we work across a handful of different neighborhoods, and what I'm encouraged by is the fact that we didn't have to be the first one. We work alongside Eddie, we work alongside East Warren Development, we work alongside Wave 6, and by the next 2 years in each of those neighborhoods, you'll see like 4 or 5 new developments and businesses that are really going to catalyze what a commercial corridor should look like in the city. And for me, I think that's the biggest thing, is when all this hits, all the proof will be in the pudding, right? I think we're going to see more walkability. East Warren is heavily car-laden garages. You're going to actually, I had a daughter, she's going to be able to walk down the street now, right? Those things matter in terms of just building up communities, and I think we need to get to that kind of inflection point of critical mass, but it's coming. And I'm really excited to see what it is.
A number of things I'm excited about, but I'm really excited and impressed by the push that the partners, the funding partners, the city of Detroit has for emerging developers. So developers of color more specifically. And I really don't see what I was able to do with the ribbon being done anywhere else in the country. And so I say that because I'm excited to see more individuals, more developers, aspiring developers that come after us do greater projects than what we're working on, further helping to build the city of Detroit in a manner that is specifically providing solutions to the neighborhoods that they're building within. And I see that as really a case study in 30, 40 years where you're going to look back at Detroit and you're going to say, how were they able to make this happen? How were they able to support all of these emerging developers and have all of these successful projects and, spark these communities in the manner that Brandon is mentioning? And I'm just excited to really kind of see it all flesh out and be recognized, because I don't think it's being highlighted as much from a country, from a national standpoint, but I think it's coming to that point, and we don't necessarily need that to happen. But all I'm saying is, that to me is really what I'm most excited about. What really is happening. I'm sorry, I'm scatterbrained and rambling. That's what I'm excited about. Hopefully, we got something there.
And we did, Eddie, so thank you. I want to give our panelists a big, huge round of applause. And thank you. These are the folks, along with our great partners in the city. I know I've mentioned it a number of times, HRD, PDD in the house, executive level, and the neighborhood economic development team. These folks here, in partnership with them, are leading the way for neighborhood development in the city of Detroit. And I think I cannot wait to see the success that you all have, the generational wealth that you're building for your families and for your businesses and your organizations, but more than anything, the resiliency that we plan to be a part of for this great city of Detroit. Thank you all. Next up, we do have our next panel, Nate Barnes. We're going to have you come on up, and those panelists will join me shortly.
We're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon for the final time. Good afternoon. My name is Nate Barnes. I'm Vice President of Neighborhoods, Neighborhood Team at West Detroit. And as the longest tenured member of the Neighborhoods Team, I've seen SNF from the front row for the past 7 years, as have a lot of these folks. And I'd like them to introduce themselves, but first, I want to talk about the switch we're taking here with another part of the public-private partnership. We're going to talk about CDOs and community development. The other side of the equation, how that's changed since the first iteration of SNF to now, and what we look forward to doing in the future. So, without further ado, the panelists. Start with Caitlin.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caitlin Murphy, and I'm the Executive Director of the Live 6 Alliance.
I'm Joe Branchard. I'm the Executive Director of the Smart Development Corp.
And Michael Randall, Executive Director of Grandma Rosa Development Corporation. Thanks all for being here. So as I mentioned, 7 years ago, SNF. I can't say because I remember around that. But the program itself has changed quite a bit. In the first iteration of SNF, we looked to solve gaps in financing. It was just a straight financial tool. But pretty quickly we found out as we were working on neighborhoods that we needed partners, and partnerships in the forms of CDOs. So y'all been working in the city for at least 7 years, if not longer. I want to know from your perspectives, how has SNF changed and worked with your organizations and in your neighborhoods over the course of those 7 years? So whoever wants to go first.
I can jump in. I haven't been around for 7, less than 7, a little over 3 years, well, about 3 years. What I will say is that I can probably glean from the last 3.5 years that it has changed because it had to. We have this little thing called a global pandemic that dragged out a lot of projects, a lot of funding that we thought these projects would be done by this time, and obviously they didn't happen, right? And so I think that partnership, obviously the city with Invest Detroit and the partnership and having that flexibility has created an opportunity and really just a commitment in SNF and these projects, which by the way, 100%, I'm just going to borrow what my man Eddie Carrington just said, they wouldn't happen without SNF. Our ability to acquire these properties, to put the seed funding to acquire them and to hold them, again, throughout a global pandemic is just 100% not possible without that level of partnership between the public and the private sector. And so I can imagine, I can glean from my almost 3 years in GRDC that it had to change because of the pandemic. And now we're looking at closing on 35 units of affordable housing and about to break ground on a 42-unit housing development at an old IHOP site. Again, with partnership with SNF. So I can imagine that it had to change, and it's changed for the better because of the flexibility of SNF.
Yeah, and so it's Michael Randall from Grandma Rosedale Development Corporation, Joe Rashid, East Ward Development Corporation. It's a vibe, if you can't tell. Caleb Murphy from Live 6 Alliance.
Yeah, and I guess I would say, I guess I was kind of, an early adopter up here. I think we were, even before our planning study had happened, we were meeting, talking about what potential buildings we could strategically acquire to have site control, to be able to start to see some of this development happen. But I think as it's evolved, we've had a lot of lessons learned. And through that process, I think it's really incredible to see the momentum that's been built. I think having a new streetscape can help, build that momentum and make things happen. But it's really, I think, what we're doing on these corridors is really something special. We've got about 22 developments happening. I think about a little under half of those are in West Detroit, SNF projects happening. And everyone's different. Every deal's different. We have to get really creative to get these financed and make things happen. But none of these deals could happen really without the Strategic Neighborhood Fund being a core part of that. And not only that, having that partnership between the city and West Detroit and us, and sometimes MEDC, and sometimes Liz, and sometimes all these other partners, right? It all depends on the building and what's going into it. But we all kind of get what each other's role is in it. And as long as we're flexible and malleable, and luckily West Detroit has been very flexible and malleable to work with us, we can get these deals done when a traditional bank wouldn't even sit there for those deals, right?
And Katie?
Absolutely. The Strategic Neighborhood Fund has been really a stabilizing force for the Live 6 Alliance, and I would also say for my career. So when I started with the organization in 2015, we did not have an office space located within this neighborhood. I was working side by side with our colleague Luke Smith, sort of shadowing him and really working to implement a lot of the framework plans that were brought to this neighborhood. So right after Live 6 launched in 2015, the planning department kicked off the Fitzgerald Revitalization Project, and the Strategic Neighborhood Fund was really birthed alongside that. And as the pilot neighborhood, our role has really changed. I think we first started with deep engagement. Some of my colleagues here played a large role in that, and some of the earlier stages working with developers for site selection, sort of concept ideation. And now post-COVID, I think our role is shifting to be a little bit more technical. We're doing a lot of analysis of visitorship trends to and from our neighborhood, and really trying to develop our own real estate development capacity so that we can have meaningful conversations with the developers that are leading this work every day and be true partners helping them solve problems.
Yeah, and a through line to your responses was the flexibility and malleability of not just the fund, but the people working within it. And I want to touch on that a bit by talking about the unique role that CEOs play in development, in the real estate development space, because there's a tension that sits between community development and real estate development. They're two sides of the same coin. But how do you see your organizations moving forward within SNF and historically with SNF work, sitting side by side in development, or in fact leading them yourselves?
Yeah, I think for me, communities want, when they hear a project announced, they expect it to happen the next week, right? And that's just not how this works. Some of these projects take 4 years. Mike and I have been working on our project for about 4 years now, and to be able to actually get across this finish line, right? And your project changes over time. The vision shifts, the funding that's available shifts. Things happen, and so our role, I think, is really that conduit between city, funders, community, and developers, right? We're helping people navigate through this process. Our role is to help understand the process ourselves, which it's taken us about 5 years to fully understand. And then now, how do we help others navigate through that process to be able to make sure our commercial corridors can be as successful as possible? And so I really think it's a really unique position to be in, and to have partners that are committed for the long term, not just like a 1 or 2 year commitment, but that there's at least a 5 year commitment to be able to see this next round happen. Really bear fruit in our neighborhoods and see these commercial corridors really flourish.
Absolutely. Good answer. I'm gonna borrow a line from one of my favorite movies, Paid in Full. Everybody eats. You know what I mean? Everybody. Grandma Rosedale has 5 neighborhoods. We have 5,500 single-family households. We have 3 major corridors, 500 plus businesses. Grandma Rosedale cannot do it all. 100%. Right? We have 2 major projects under construction. Well, one is about to complete construction, and one is about to start. Right? Those are 2 parcels. Right? Again, how many households did I say? 5,500. 500 plus businesses along 3 major commercial corridors in Northwest Detroit. Everybody can eat, right? And all of these projects are catalytic. They're right in the community, they're right on the corridor, right? For instance, our 35-minute historic renovation, because of that project, I believe that we've been able to 10x our home repair project, right? And so when I came in, we were doing about 70,000 worth of home repair, right? Today, we're about at 750,000, right? Because when developers and people and neighbors see earth moving, when they see big trucks and cranes and bulldozers, they're like, what's going on over there, right? And so I truly believe that looking at SNF 3.0, there's going to be an opportunity for CEOs to work with private developers. And Karen, you live in my neighborhood, we got to talk, right? Because there's a lot that we can do together.
Yeah, and to sort of follow the line of conversation that left off with the developer panel, I think where we would like to play a significant role moving forward is with the tenant subsidy and build-out phase of this work. There's still a huge gap, and we don't want to see newly developed commercial vacancy. And we also know that it's a big gamble for a lot of emerging entrepreneurs and small business owners that want to be on the corridors, but when you're at still about 40% vacancy, it's a huge risk not only to make, a multi-year commitment in terms of the lease, but to put as much working capital that you might need to operate your business into the furniture, fixtures, and equipment in the build-out. And so we've been able to benefit from Spark grants in the past from Invest Detroit, which has really allowed us the ability to be flexible with how we, in our last stage, it was really focused on business supports for existing businesses and business retention. But I think this next piece, the business attraction, is going to have to fit hand in glove with subsidies for those tenants.
And I'm glad you mentioned Spark grants, Caitlin, because that is one of those evolutionary things in SNF that didn't exist in 1 and only came late to SNF 2, and we look to continue in SNF 3. And along with Spark grants, we have community engagement grants that are now given out to developers and CEOs looking to develop so that they can spread the word, but not on their time. And it is an actual grant. It's not a recoverable loan, it's not a loan product, it's a grant. So with those unique twists and turns that SNF has taken, and besides what I'm hearing is a need for commercial TI in the new fund to bake that into deals, what are the other things you're looking for in terms of support to face the challenges, unique challenges, in each of your corridors for SNF?
So, I guess, and we're working through it now, we're talking about it, Jermaine, Mike, and I have been talking about it on our deal and whatnot. The developers themselves, especially if they're small emerging developers, they need sometimes an owner's rep. They need additional technical support to be able to navigate through those hoops. Well, I definitely think that the TI dollars are super important. Part of the reason why we're getting some of the best restaurants in the city coming to East Warren is because we're selling an opportunity to own their own building. We're getting, Bob Fair, we're getting South Club, we're getting, Holly and Say coming into your space, Brandon. And, and with these spaces, these are new developers in a lot of ways. And heck, we're a new developer too, ourselves. And so there's a lot of learning lessons that you learn through that process. And by going through that process, then our hope is that we can, add that another layer of technical assistance even before you get to a closing table or get even to pre-development. you know, we can start to help to, you know, coach and navigate people, you know, developers through that process to build a more dense commercial corridor. And so, you know, I think, you know, where majority of, I think, the developments have come is in either properties that Invest Detroit owned or City of Detroit owned up to this point. How do we now, I think, pivot to also look at some of these privately held properties that are typically cash only? And things like that where, you know, yeah, these deals could almost essentially work as cash, but they take 2-3 years to do sometimes. And getting a private owner to hang on for that long to get to that place is really hard. So how do we build density with that? And so that's that one, I think, critical piece that we've got to kind of figure out if we're going to build consistent density on these commercial corridors.
And that is something that has been with SNF for the entire time. We have been able to dislodge properties by acquisition and then RFP them, but that RFP process in and of itself has changed over the course of the program. Now we involve y'all in that process pretty heavily, as Eddie can attest. So yeah, we look to continue to keep doing that work. But yeah,
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Jermaine and Mike, we spoke about this as well, just the malleability of the finance, right? And how we make it happen. I'll be lying if I sit up here and say I know the answer, because I don't, right? Eddie mentioned community engagement. Brandon mentioned the ability to have a little bit more creative financing structures to assist in acquisition for TI dollars and whatnot. It's all going to be necessary how we move forward. Right now, we're looking at a gray box. That's the best we can do. We're not going to settle for that, but that's the reality that we're at right now. And so, continuing the flexibility, continuing the conversation, and also just overall commitment to the corridor in terms of supporting small business and entrepreneurs. I'm pretty sure we'll get there, but I think that it's going to take flexibility, additional conversations, and probably more gray hair on Mike B's head. So we'll make it work.
And at Lim 6, we're grateful for flexible funding as always. And if an investment will be made, I think we could really benefit from more patient forms of capital, lowering the interest rates, buying down the current Fed rate, and also really trying to focus on how we can fill gaps with our partners. Invest Detroit has made significant investment into these neighborhoods, but I think bringing more economic development partners into the equation to solve for some of these gaps is going to be really critical. Our organization is really excited because we're pursuing the Michigan Main Street designation and are hopeful that we'll have that designation for the West McNichols corridor at the beginning of 2025, and we're hopeful that that coordination with the state will allow for additional resources to flow to fund some of these projects within the district.
Yeah, I'm personally thankful to all of y'all for helping us work that leverage, right? Because without your partnership in that, the capital stack would look very different, and a lot of those would fall on SNF to complete the stack. So we're going to wrap up here, but I want to leave with one question about the future, and it's what are you hoping for in SNF3 in terms of a project or program that you would like to see come to fruition?
Acquisition, site control. I mean, we all are, developers here, adjacent, so we know that site control is absolutely critical to everything we're going to do. And again, I'm saying a third time, these projects aren't possible without site control, and that ability to acquire properties through SNF patiently, understanding the long-term vision of our organizations is absolutely critical. So being able to do that through whatever means possible to make sure that acquisition is a reality is what is going to continue the vibrancy of our corridor and what's going to make these projects happen.
I echo the site control. I think there's a few key sites within the 6 Mile corridor that we would love to see activated to really continue the momentum and complete several blocks. And then obviously I mentioned the tenant subsidy and sort of build out, fund and support. And I think we're just really excited to see a diversity of retail coming to to our neighborhood. We're very excited, we have the pizza bar, we have another restaurant concept forthcoming, but I think we really need to better curate that mix of shop owners and entrepreneurs so that we're creating a diverse experience where there's something for everyone at all times of the day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, I guess I would say I'm really excited to eat because there's going to be a lot of really great restaurants opening. But yeah, I mean, I think building that density and walkability to the businesses that have already taken that risk and opened on the corridor so that they can thrive that much more by having a density of retail, by having a density of businesses there, and figuring out how we can better assist these developers to get these deals done quicker, because our communities are expecting them quicker, right? And I think that is a piece of it for us, that like, how do we, be a better advocate? How do we work in closer, proximity to West Detroit to be able to get these deals done in a manner where it's not, not taking a minute, right? And so that the community doesn't start to question the project, and because I think for us it's really about making sure we're open and as transparent as we possibly can be, and I think that's the critical piece about the community engagement dollars that allow us to make sure that people understand that deals sometimes are announced. It might take a year or two to really get that capital stack together before it can actually even break ground, and then they don't know what's going to happen if they don't see it break ground, right? So I think that's a really critical piece.
Gotcha. So 3 is the magic number, and it's the number of the day. So filling financial gaps, filling physical gaps in the neighborhood, and also filling gaps in the process. With that, thank you 3 for being here for the discussion. And I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague Jermaine and end the program.
So that concludes our Strategic Neighborhood 3 event today. I do want to thank all of you, including the great folks again from the city of Detroit. We couldn't do this without the planning department. I'm an urban planner. I worked at the city, worked at the planning department, so I'm grateful to all the planners who helped lead this process throughout the city and are always continuing to bring great projects, whether it's for Spark Grants or for development. And so we're appreciative of you. The Housing Revitalization Department, the Neighborhood Economic Development Department at the city as well. But I also want to just take a moment to thank my team. Nate Barnes, Naomi Smith, Kerry Ryan Rowe, all of the folks, Mike Smith, Ryan somewhere. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your commitment to the work that we do in the neighborhoods. Thank you for the hard work that you do behind the scenes. Thank you to, I can't forget Derek Edwards and Dixie Barnett. What up, Bill? For all of the work that we do in support of Detroit's neighborhoods. I really thank you for this because we are leading the nation in the right way to develop, right? When we're talking about leading from community, then to development, that doesn't happen in other places. And so for us, when we are working in neighborhoods, one of the biggest things that I've heard through the years and going through a lot of these community engagement processes, well, that development is not for us. If it doesn't start with neighborhood, then it usually doesn't end with neighborhood. So for us to be able to start with neighborhood, to have leaders like these great leaders for the community development organizations, to have great leaders who are concerned about the future of Detroit from our planning departments and our housing departments, and to have wonderful developers from all walks of life. I didn't get a chance to say this earlier, but over 75% of our deals that we've done have Black and brown developers and women-led development. That is something that is extremely critical to the future of the city of Detroit. We know how important it is to lead with folks who are from the community and ensure that they have a part of this vision, of leading this vision, and have all of the benefit from this investment that we've been doing moving forward. So we look forward to partnering with everyone under Strategic Neighborhood Fund 3. And to those of you who we didn't get a chance to shout out, blame it on the head, not the heart, but I love you. What up?